Have you ever listened to a presentation and felt completely bored? It's very likely that the presenter focused only on themselves and did not focus at all on you and did not make the presentation relate to you. Welcome to part 2 of the AIMED series. In part 1, I described how it is essential that when you plan your presentation or meeting, that you need to understand the A in AIMED. Who is your audience? And how can you relate to them? If you ever felt bored listening to a speaker, it's probably because the speaker did not take the time to think about their audience, to try to relate to them, and give them what they need. The speaker didn't spend time trying to figure out who their audience was. Have you guessed the second letter of AIMED yet? If I am giving a presentation and I am only focused on me and I'm not focused on the audience, then I am only focused on I. That's right. The second letter of AIMED is I. The presentation is not about I. It is not about you. It is about serving your audience. It's not about you as the speaker. I find this the most difficult step in my AIMED framework. Why do I think it's so difficult? Well, let's see if you can relate to this story. From the time I was 5 years old, I was trained that when I gave a presentation, that the presentation was all about me. And then a few years later, when I needed to give a presentation again, it was all about me and everything I learned. Same thing happened in high school, university, even graduate school. Nobody ever taught me that the presentation is all about the audience. Nobody ever taught me to serve my audience and give them what they want. Maybe you can relate. When you're preparing for a presentation, you feel that everything is about you and how great you can be in front of a group. You work on writing out your full presentation, using your best words, practicing it until you can memorize it. When it is time to present, are you so nervous and hope you don't make a mistake or look bad in front of other people? I think you do. Most people do. When most people prepare for a presentation, it is all about I, me. You ever spend 1 second of time thinking about your audience? Trying to connect with your audience? Trying to relate to your audience? Trying to serve your audience with what they want? When you give presentations, do you feel like the spotlight is 100% on you? Maybe you feel like this image. Did anyone ever teach you that the presentation is about the audience? Nobody taught me this until after I finished my MBA in law school. I learned this in a Dale Carnegie course, which completely changed my life. And by the way, I highly recommend Dale Carnegie courses to all of you. When you realize that the presentation is not about you, but instead it's about the audience, you can shift the spotlight from you to the audience. When I'm coaching my clients, I find this to be the most difficult part about preparing for presentations, because all of us were taught that the presentation is about the presenter. And that is what most of us learn from an early age until today. It's really difficult to stop thinking that the presentation is about you and start thinking that the presentation is 100% about the audience. But when you do understand this point, it makes the presentations and meetings so much easier. and more effective. 3 reasons why you need to make the presentation about the audience. Reason 1, stronger connection. Reason 2, better engagement. And reason 3, greater impact. Stronger connection. You want to make a connection with your audience. We have all been in the audience when the speaker never connected with us. Here are 2 ways to build a strong connection with your audience. The first is relatability, and the second is empathy. Relatability is the idea that you know your audience so well that you can relate to them. Also, because you can relate to them, they can relate to you. This relatability builds a strong connection. When you're able to relate to your audience, you can make a better connection with them. If they feel a better connection, they'll be a lot more interested in what you're talking about. Sharing stories and examples that your audience can relate with helps build a personal connection and makes the message more memorable. Earlier, I talked about how you might feel scared about giving presentations, and I talked about how I used to feel the same way. I always used to think that presentations were all about me. Do you see how I made it easy for you to relate to me? In a way, I am a speaker, and you are my audience. My videos should always be about you, not about me. Also, I need to make it easy for you to relate to me, because I should show you how I understand how you feel. In the part 1 video of the AIM series, which, if you haven't seen it, you can find it with this link here. And if you haven't watched part 1 first, you really need to. In part 1, I discussed that there are 2 important things you need to do in order to relate to your audience: empathy and understanding. When you show that you understand your audience, you are showing empathy. Empathy might be the most important value a speaker can have. Empathy means that the speaker understands and shares the audience's feelings and perspectives. Using real empathy builds trust with your audience. And when making a presentation, connect with your audience. When you connect with them, they will connect with you. It really is that simple and powerful. If you only focus on I, and you don't connect with your audience, you have no chance of giving an effective presentation. Increased engagement. You want your audience to have a high level of engagement. Engagement in presentation can be simply defined as the audience's active interest and participation during the presentation. This means they're listening, asking questions, and showing that they're involved and interested in what you are sharing. You will never have engagement with an audience if you're only focused on I, because this presentation is not about you. It is 100% about your audience. Here are 2 ways to increase your audience's engagement. First, you should have audience-focused content. And second, you should have interactive elements. Well, audience-focused content is when you use your content to address the specific needs, interests, and concerns of the audience and make it more relevant and interesting to them. When they see that the information directly applies to them, they're more likely to stay attentive and pay attention. Using interactive elements in a presentation allows you to increase your level of connection with your audience by using examples, stories, and analogies that the audience can relate to. This will help them feel a personal connection to the material. As an example, one of the things I ask my clients to do is learn how to ask an interesting question right at the beginning of their presentation. A question such as, how many of you have ever had this issue before? If you did have this issue, please raise your hand. Or can you tell a story about how you had a similar problem that was related to this audience and the presentation topic? When you prepare properly for your presentation, your audience will be engaged because you took the time to plan audience focused content and use interactive elements. Now, let's see how you can have a greater impact on your audience. Greater impact. One of the goals of a great presentation is to have a big impact on your audience. If you're only focused on yourself as the speaker and in the I mindset, it is almost impossible to have a great impact. But when you plan your presentation to be all about your audience, you can easily have a strong impact on them. Here are 2 ways to have a greater impact on your audience. First, influence and persuasion. And second, actionable takeaways. Influence is the ability to affect someone's thoughts, feelings, or actions. And persuasion is the act of convincing someone to do or believe something through reasoning or argument. By this point, I hope I have been able to show you that when the speaker only is focused on themselves, that it is so difficult to influence an audience. By understanding and directly addressing the problems and issues that an audience feels, you can more effectively persuade them of your message's importance. When the audience feels that you understand their problems and are offering solutions, they're more likely to be influenced by your presentation. They will trust you. Actionable takeaways are clear and practical steps or advice that your audience can apply immediately. Practical advice is when you provide your audience with clear, actionable steps that they can use immediately. When you're able to do this, it makes your presentation valuable to your audience. And when the audience can see practical applications of your content, they're more likely to remember and use it. Making your advice or solutions targeted directly to the specific challenges and needs of your audience makes it more relevant and impactful. So let's look at where we are at this point. I've given you the beginning steps of the AIMED framework. We started in part 1 with the letter A from AIMED. And A stands for who is your audience and how can you relate to them? And in this part 2, I've tried to explain I in the AIMED framework, which means it's not about I. It's not about you as the presenter. It's about serving your audience. And it's important to remember that the AIM series is about creating great communication skills. And you can use these skills for not just presentations, but you can use them for meetings. You can use them for all types of communication. And I really try to focus on improving communication and giving you the confidence to communicate as well as you can in English and in your native language. The key here is when you're planning, you really want to know who your audience is and you want to put yourself in their shoes. This presentation is not about you as the presenter, it's all about your audience. In part 3 of AIMED, we'll focus on the M in the AIMED framework. I think you can guess what the M stands for. And I'll share the details of how you can use M to create a fantastic presentation. And I want you to put your guesses for what you think the M in AIMED stands for into the comments. I look forward to the next videos in this series, and I really like trying to help you build confidence in your communication skills. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share your comments, And I also invite you to learn your Business English Confidence Score. You'll find the link in the description below this video.